Hi, my name is Matt Hilton, and I am a realtor in Dallas, Texas, and I'm so excited to share on Conversations with Pearl today.
Hello, sunshine, good to see you again. Had to walk out to let you back in. Stuck in a storm of a relationship. Lost my fire. Oh, and I forgot about me for way too long. But it's rolled on. Now there ain't no shade around here. Once you leave the clouds, you're under. Ain't it funny how there ain't no rain or clear? Why'd it take so long to leave you in the rearview mirror? Now nobody gonna steal my sunshine or turn my blue sky gray. All I know is at the end of the day, wildflowers grow when there ain't no shade.
Hey everybody, I am back. This is Pearl with Women Successful Living, and we're on for another episode of Conversations with Pearl. And you guys, if you're a normal listener on here frequently, you know it's very rare that we have gentlemen on the show. And 2 days in a row now, I've had the pleasure of having met some amazing men through Michelle Jewsbury. And today is no different. We have a great guest today. And today our guest is Matt Hilton, and he is a lifelong entrepreneur, a Dallas native with an unmatched knowledge of the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex, and the first to graduate from a major university on both sides of his family. As the eldest of 4 siblings and a devoted father of 4, Matt's passion for real estate over the past 2 decades has propelled him to become consistent top producer among his peers. Beyond his thriving career, Matt finds fulfillment exploring the world, impacting lives, and hosting the Matt Hilton Show. And it was at the age of 43 that he broke his silence, embarking on a purposeful journey to live his truth. Today, as a captivating speaker, Matt imparts the 5 essential declarations that empower others to embrace their own truth. His mission is simple yet profound: to inspire imagination, lead with love, and listen intently to the stories that shape our shared human experience. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Pearl. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So excited to have you here. And, let's talk about, first of all, I love Dallas, Texas. I have many friends in the area there. And I always try to sneak away and go visit with them as well. So tell us about Matt. Tell us a little bit like what led you down the path, and give us a little insight to your story.
Yeah, thank you. So, thank you for that introduction. A lot of who I am and where I grew up and all was already stated, but I did grow up here in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. I'm the oldest of 4. I'm actually a father of 4 as well. So I have 3 girls and a boy, and they are my pride and joy. They are what you call my why of, why I do what I do. And so that is a little bit about me. I was a straight A student in school. I love to go out and ride my bike, and I threw papers at the age of 10 years old. And the other day, Pearl, I was looking in a box of just goodies my mom had given me years ago. And I found this letter that I had sent out to everybody in the neighborhood that I threw papers to, with an introduction, my phone number, my address, and a picture was at the bottom. And so at the age of 10, I was already learning how to market and do all that sort of stuff, and didn't even know what that was. So it was interesting.
That's funny. I mean, I was just sitting there to talk about throwing paper. So my husband, he used to do that too. He goes, yeah, I was a newspaper delivery. I'm like, we don't even I don't even think we have the option to have a paper delivered anymore.
Yeah, I haven't seen papers on people's sidewalks anymore.
Who would have thought we'd be in a digital world of reading the news online, back then. And how cool is, like you said, like you found that notes, and, a look back into our childhood and what you did. Like you said, you're already learning the market and being an entrepreneur back then. It's just so cool. And so let's talk about I've been talking a lot lately online about our saboteurs and judges, and how our childhood shows up in our adulthood. And, and for the moms that are listening and dads that are listening, understand that what we say and our actions towards our kids to 7, 8 years old, it impacts our adulthood. And if you think about that, I was sharing my story with the transition. We were hoping to help my mom move here, but that's gone south. And so I was like going, wow. When I got home, and I actually last week I had a one-to-one meeting with somebody I had met through a mastermind I'm doing. And she's a trauma coach, but she works with people. She's an accountant trauma coach, which I thought was really cool. And her name is Juanita. And she works with people who they get to a certain level in their income and they get stuck. And she's like, let's talk about why you're stuck, why you don't think you deserve to earn more. And
Right.
when she was walking through it, she sort of coached me on our session again. It was really cool. And it brought up like, yeah, when I was young, when my mom and dad had me, they were like barely 18, 19 years old. And here they are, my mom's stuck with this baby at 18 years old. And my dad's off to war. And she's like, you basically took your mother's youth away because she's stuck with you. Your dad's at war and she's watching all her friends go out and have fun. I'm like, wow, that was, that explained why my childhood was the way it was. I was like, and why I became a people pleaser, because, I was helping babysit my sister and brother and do all these things that, to make sure I was my parents. And so what would you say that some of the childhood things that happen in your life have affected you today? And I know it's going to lead us into your story as well. So wherever you want to go with it, go take us away.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. So I kind of come at it from a different perspective, maybe, because I grew up very similarly. My parents were 18, 19, actually 18 and 20 when they had me. And we grew up in a 1,300 square foot house. Again, there were 6 of us, 4 kids and my mom and dad. My mom and dad gave their master bedroom or primary bedroom to the 3 boys. And my sister got her own room, and they went into one of the secondary rooms also. Getting ready for church services in school, in a 1.5 bedroom house with 6 people running around, was quite interesting. Mom was very much on schedule. She cleaned the house every day, like she vacuumed every day, swept. She dusted probably twice a week, if not more. So our house was very clean. And that has projected on me. I'm a clean person, right? So, but as far as my parents, I didn't know growing up, Pearl, that we were lower middle class. My dad was a mechanic. My mom kept kids at the house. Like there was a time that she was probably keeping around 13 kids or so, in addition to the 4 of us. And I know that the state would not have approved of that, right? Because 1.5 bathrooms. But yeah, but I didn't know we were lower middle class. Like we had everything. We had food, shelter, and water. We had the essentials of life. And I didn't know any better. And I wanted to go to college, as you mentioned in the intro. I wanted to go to college to be a doctor. For some reason, I wanted at a young age to not keep the cycle going. I wanted to break the cycle of, I didn't want to be a blue collar worker and living paycheck to paycheck. I saw my parents doing that. And I knew there was much more out there. Like Pearl, we went on vacations, but it was vacations where we could drive to. I think the furthest vacation we went as a child was maybe to Tennessee. And went to Dollywood and all that sort of stuff. And then we drove back home. And I just knew there was so much more out there. And I wanted to explore. And so I went to college, got the degree. I've traveled the world. I went to 8 different places last year. And I love living life because we aren't guaranteed tomorrow. And these are things that I have taught myself or learned myself over the years. I grew up in a very strict Christian household, Church of Christ, which if people aren't familiar with Church of Christ, maybe they know what Baptist is or Southern Baptist. Church of Christ is a very strict Southern Baptist. There's no drinking, no dancing, no cursing, no anything, right? That would give you enjoyment, right? We were a tight-knit family. Like growing up, we were all like playing together and we ate dinner together at the table. We had so many fun conversations and memories at the kitchen table. But I did grow up learning and being programmed through my Christian upbringing. And I was programmed that certain things were not good. And that if those things were in your life, then you were not a good person. And I think that when children grow up and they hear that they're either good or bad, that is not good for their psyche at all. Because you don't want to ever think that you are a bad person. What you do is bad, maybe, but you are not a bad person. Right. And I think when we tell them, oh, you're a good boy or you're a good girl or that, like that, just that messes with people. So yeah, that's
Yeah, that's so true. Like what we say and what we, to our kids. And that's so true. Like you're right. You do good things and there's things that we do that are not right, that are bad. Right. And so to have a conversation with our children or with the whoever the challenge is with is to have that conversation with like, you know what? And I remember I used to coach Dale Carnegie. And one of the things we talked about was like, find, the action that was good and then avoid the but word, because the but word is your eraser. Right. And the word and is leads you to, what I saw, Johnny, I saw you talk to your friend that way. And I saw you listen to them. I saw you be concerned about what had happened to them. And, because maybe they were bullying them. Right. And then you can say, and when you then started saying all these bad things, whatever, that's not fair to your friend. That's not acceptable behavior, whatever that is. I think it's so important. And I wrote down Footloose movie when you were talking about the dancing and everything. That's my favorite movie. Actually, that's the first date I had with my husband to go see that movie. And I love that movie. And so, I thought about, like you said, a thing of enjoyment, right? Like, no, don't do that. Don't touch those, that's such bad things, right? And I remember
talking about Footloose, Pearl, like that was a movie we couldn't watch.
I bet.
Like, growing up, like Top Gun was a movie that was on. And then I remember specifically one morning, Sunday morning after a sermon, the preacher spoke about watching rated R movies or those things that, have some scenes that maybe children shouldn't see or that even adults shouldn't see and subject themselves to. And Mom went home and threw away the Top Gun videotape. Totally threw it away to get it out of the house. And I'm like, wow, looking back on that just
oh my gosh,
crazy.
That's funny. So I wrote that down. And talking about kids, I know I've shared this, so for the listeners, if you've listened before, you've probably heard this before, but I want to remind those that are listening again. My husband and I, we tried for 10 years to have our boys, and we adopted our oldest son, and then our youngest son we had through the help of doctors. But I remember I had a coworker at where I worked at in the mortgage business, and I would see him. I stopped one time to go to the grocery store or something. And I saw him sitting outside a coffee shop with one of his kids, and I was like, I see you often out there doing that. And he shared with me, he goes, I've done that with my kids since they were babies. Like when they were babies, I knew A, my wife needs her time as well. And B, I wanted to create and establish a relationship with my child. So he said, I would take them to coffee or breakfast. Yeah, they couldn't talk or anything for have engaging conversation, but I had the act of spending time with them and creating that time with them. And so he said, so then as they got older, he said, I created the fact this table that we're sitting at is your safe space. You can tell me anything you need to tell me, and I will protect you outside of breaking the law. He's like, they can tell me anything, whether it's drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever's happening in their world that they want to discuss. They knew that A, I wasn't going to go back and tell their mom, and B, this is our time together, and I will help you work through whatever you need help working through, or I would just listen, right? If you just need me to listen. Right. And so that was so powerful for me. I think by then my oldest was probably in fourth grade. My youngest one was in kindergarten. So I went home and I shared that with my husband. And when we moved here to Florida over 17 years ago, I started doing that with my boys. And he did it separately. I think he had 3 kids. So he did it separately with each kid. And what I found was as my kids got older and became, in high school and like that and their adulthood, my oldest is forever 25 and my youngest will be 24 in January. But I remember they would call me, like my oldest, it was sushi. If he called me and said, Mom, can we go have sushi? I knew he wanted to talk. My youngest one, it was about going to the movies. Hey, mom, want to go catch a movie? I was like, okay, we're going to have a conversation, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think that for those that are listening, creating that safe space for your kids to allow them is so powerful, even when they're little, because like we talked about, the things we say or do can affect them as they become older, right? And so you can create that space of saying, you are seen, you are heard, and you are accepted to be seen and heard, right? And so I love that you talked about that. And then I also want to touch on how you're right. Life is so fleeting. We don't know what the next 5 seconds is going to happen. And, you know, my world was that on July 25th of last year, where literally 20 minutes after we had talked to our son, he lost his life in a car accident, you know, so you don't know. So, I mean, I knew then, even before we lost him, cherish every moment, spend every time together. I mean, like I said, we talked to him 20 minutes before he passed, but the day before he was in my garage doing some work with my husband, and we were throwing water bottles at each other, you know, so we had those great moments together. And so I love that you remind us of that, because it's really important. And then the other thing too, that, you know, that you talked about was breaking the cycle, right? So I want us to lead to that, because I know you had a cycle you broke, not just with the blue collar cycle, but you also had some things that were very, you know, changing for you in your life. And I want us to touch on that. But, you know, we have to realize and understand we don't have to continue the path of what we grow, what we know. You can break the cycle, and it's okay. I mean, with me, you know, I was a daddy's girl for the world revolved around my dad. And when we had our kids, you know, my parents were very involved, very excited for us. But as our kids became voices of their own and they could share their voices, behaviors that I saw as a kid that I kind of forgot about it, you know, we kind of bury that sometimes, started to come out towards my children. And one that was not acceptable, that I had to put a permanent fence and lock the fence on, was that my dad become racist towards my oldest. My oldest we adopted, he was mixed race, and his behaviors and actions. And the thing was, my son, you know, even though we had that safe space of having time together, he still was trying to protect me because he didn't want me to know what his grandfather was doing. And he had a friend come and tell me. And like I said, I locked that fence up. And with my mom, you know, here we are years later trying to help her and everything. And there's actions and things that she's doing, behaviors that I remember seeing as a kid. And I was like, you know what? I coach and I talk about and I work on boundaries, setting boundaries. And so, you know, back in the day, we were told, accept the behavior, they're your parents, right? And I locked the fence, and I did a TikTok about this where you can divorce your parents. It's okay, because it's no different than a relationship that you're in that's a, you know, not a healthy relationship. What do? We leave relationships that are traumatic to us, that maybe are domestic violence, sexually, you know, violent, whatever those are. We leave those. It's okay to say, I'm leaving my parents. And if you're listening, it's okay to say the actions of my kids are not acceptable. You know, I mean, I have a friend who her son was a severe addict, and she said, you're not allowed here. You're not allowed in my life. When you clean up, I'll be here. And that was after trying, you know, I'm not saying just kick your kids out, but that was after trying years upon years upon years with trying to help with rehab and things like that. Sometimes we have to understand. And, you know, it's funny, we were talking about church. I went to a retreat years ago, and our pastor, we got to have some one-on-one time with him. And he said this, and it was so profound for me. And so if you're listening, take notes. He said, Pearl, we don't get to pick our parents. You know, God picks our parents for us. We're going to love them because they are our parents. However, this is your game of life. If you are a baseball fan, a football fan, whatever game you're playing a game of life. So if they can't play by the rules you set in the game of life, they sit on the bench, and it's okay. And I'm telling you, Matt, once he told me that, I was like, this is so powerful. And I was 45 years old. My parents divorced after 40 some years of marriage. It was like I'm being pulled, right? Mm-hmm. So I love that you talked about breaking the cycle, because that, you know, we can break the cycle of saying, well, yes, that's because of who they are. We have to accept that. You don't have to accept that behavior. You can set boundaries around it. And that's what I love coaching women on, that is, how do you set boundaries around your life, around difficult relationships? How do you set boundaries around relationships you still have to be involved in, that you don't want to be involved in, but you know you've got to have interaction with, right? And
Yeah.
so I would love you to talk to us, lead us into, we shared in your bio that, at the age of 43, you broke your silence and you started on your journey. I would love you to share that journey with us.
Sure. It's a long journey, Pearl. And I appreciate you talking about the safe space at the table, because growing up, I didn't feel like I had that safe space. Like, I felt that there would be immediate judgment, that there would be immediate, like, pulling away. It would ruin the relationship I had with my parents. And I said I was a straight A student. I never got in trouble in high school. Like, I wasn't the partying guy. I wasn't that person. Like, I would go to school, I'd come home, I'd do my homework. Like, I did all the right things, right? Because one, I didn't want to disappoint my parents. And so, growing up, I would have conversations, Pearl, because I didn't have an addiction. I'd have conversations with God about, take these feelings from me. Like, why did you create me just to condemn me? Because in the Church of Christ, it is taught and programmed into you that if you are attracted to the same sex, that is a sin and that is an abomination to God. And so growing up, if you can imagine having those feelings of attraction for someone or men, people of the same sex, it's like that, that what you have been programmed to believe is that you're an abomination. And if I'm an abomination to God, what is that going to be to my parents? And what are they going to do? Like, all these things are going through my head. And I was resilient. I was able to wear my mask and wear it really well for 30 plus years, because I realized that there was this attraction around the age of 10. And, I went through life and I prayed, I read the Bible, I did everything that I thought I was supposed to do, except for talk to people about it. I never talked to anybody about what I was going through internally. And so I got married. I thought that would help, right? It would take the feelings away if I did what I was supposed to do, right? My ex-wife is a teacher, and our son, who just graduated in May, decided he didn't want to go to college. He's going to go to tech school in the fall and next year. And as an educator, they impress upon kids you have to go to college. You have to go to college. Well, college isn't for everybody. And so, doing things that you feel are the right thing to do aren't necessarily what is right for everybody, right? So yeah, we had 4 children, as I stated earlier. And in 2016, I realized, and that was when I was 43, I realized that these conversations that I was having with God, nothing was changing. He wasn't taking the feelings away. And I studied enough to know that God loves me no matter what. And when I realized that, and I began trusting myself to go through a transformation of living my truth and being who I was created to be and not hiding behind a mask, I discovered that I could divorce my parents. At the age of 43, what was I doing? Right? I mean, it's like, this is not the life that God intended for me to live. So, I came out and let people, I actually didn't come out. I chose to let people in. And that's the way I like to express it, because I didn't have to let people know, but I chose to let them know. And once I did that, Pearl, everything that I feared as a child happened. My parents pulled away. I haven't really had a great conversation with my mom in 7 years. And as a child, even at the age of 50, that hurts. Mom has Parkinson's now. She was diagnosed about 2.5, 3 years ago. She has slight symptoms. I don't know what that looks like. I have a feeling that I may be called into a hospital room. in her end days. And then that's the time I'm going to be able to talk to my mom and let her know what's on my heart. And that breaks my heart because, I want memories, right, with mom. And I'm sorry I'm getting upset. But even to this day, I know I made the right decision.
Yeah.
Because I am able to now, in my opinion, be a better father to my kids because they know, because they see at Christmas and birthdays and all the things, my ex-wife, everybody going to my parents' house, including my children, and dad's not there.
Right.
And so they see that. And I have been able to tell them, look, I don't care what happens, what you do, who you are, like, this is a safe space and I will always love you. You will always be welcome into my house and at my table. I may not agree with you. I don't like you all the time, right? But I will always love you.
Right.
And I think as parents, if we could understand that, and because I don't know if you know this, but of the homeless youth in America, about, I think it's close to 70% of the homeless youth identify as LGBTQ plus because they have been kicked out or they don't feel safe at their home or whatever that. And so they're couch surfing at different friends' houses and this, that. And that is real, Pearl.
Right.
And I think as parents, if we could love our children,
right.
In an unconditional way, like it does not matter what you do.
Yeah.
Like I don't agree with it, but I'm still going to love you.
Absolutely. I love that you said that too, because that's one of the things too, like with our boys, we always said, our son Matthew, who struggled with alcohol, we helped him with rehab. He was doing really well. But we always said, our home is your safe space. No matter what, we may not agree with what you're doing. This is your safe space with rules. Like we do have rules that you need to abide by, but this is your safe space. And so it's so, so important. I think, what happened was there was an age like with your parents and my parents that these things you just don't talk about. These things are not acceptable, by whatever it's through faith or whatever they're being told. They just in their mind think it's not acceptable. And this whole and we're seeing it today. Like, you talked about your mom, my mom, same thing for me. Like I was there 2 weeks ago, packing up her house, we have a chairlift we put in our home. She basically, my upper level of my house could be like her apartment. We are creating space for her to live with us safely. Right. And unfortunately, in today's world of like what's happening in these politics, I never thought in my household, I would see that because I live in a state that I live in, which is Florida, and because I choose to not be vaccinated, maybe you have a conversation with me why I have health issues that my doctor who's pro-vaccine said, I don't want you getting vaccinated because I don't know and I'm concerned for your health. I was like, I'm in for that. I'm okay. He's my doctor. However, I never thought in my day and age that I would have an uncle who would threaten my livelihood and threaten to go on social media and say horrible things about me only because he didn't want my mom here because A, I'm not vaccinated, and B, I live in Florida, and C, who he thinks I voted for, which I thought I lived in America. We have free. Never thought I'd have that cutoff. And my mother was willing. I mean, I watched it happen to me physically in front of me. I thought I was having an out-of-body experience. I watched her say, my uncle was okay threatening to call the police and claim I was abusing her because we were just left to doctors who said she shouldn't be driving. It's like, and I was like, wow, and like you said, I mean, it's going to take, and thank you for being vulnerable here with us. It's going to take the day she's on her deathbed to say, I'm sorry. And at that point, I don't know that I will accept that apology. I don't know that I will even show up. Like with my dad, when he became racist, I wrote him a text. I sent a message to all my family and said, while he's physically here, he is no longer of an able body to be my father. So when he does pass, I don't need to know because as far as I'm concerned, the man that I knew as my father has already passed away. And so I don't need to know those things. And those are all about the boundaries we have to set, even around difficult situations, even around people like our parents. And, and it's hard because that kid within us, you were very vulnerable showing that was that child within you we want the love of our parents. We still, even at 59 years old as I am, still want my mother to fight for me. And I watched her physically sitting next to me, not fight for me with my uncle. And I was like going, and I literally said to her with my brother and my husband on the phone going, you're okay with this behavior? Like I'm 59 years old. My son is deceased and I still fight for him when people say things like, oh, he committed suicide, which he didn't, oh, all these different things. And I'm like, you fight for your kids, So yeah, you're right. And it's important, like you do with your kids and I taught my kids. And if you are a parent listening, it's not too late to set that safe space. I don't care if your child is a baby or if your child is 70 years old. It's not too late to create the safe space to say, like with you, Matt, I understand. I may not understand it. I may not agree with it and I may not like it. However, I love you. You are my child. I love you and help me understand. Just help me understand and help me to have the relationship with you that we need to have for one another as mother, daughter, siblings, whatever that is, right? We have to, it's never, ever too late. And, I love that you and like me and those that are listening, please set that space for our children because you're affecting other generations to come. You are showing them how to parent before they become that parent. And it's so important to do that, and like you said, like I wrote down, like at 10 years old, you were having these feelings and you didn't understand it. And because of the faith, you didn't know who to go talk to and you were afraid to talk to, right? And so you weren't living your truth as you became this adult. You were living the truth that you thought somebody else, the idol of other people's opinions, right? And to those that are listening, this applies in everything, not just your sexuality. It applies in everything. Are you living your truth? And why are you not living your truth? Are you saying yes? Like I tell everybody, I'm an overcoming people pleasing addict, because you could ask me to fold your socks and I'd be like, I'll be there in 5 minutes. That's the kind of people pleaser I was, right? So are you doing the things because you're an avoider? You don't want people to see what's really inside your home and your life and what you're doing. So you're doing that imposter syndrome. Are you a people pleaser and you feel like I have to say yes to everybody because that's what, if I don't, they're going to think I'm this terrible person. And then letting people in, like Matt, I love you said, let people in, that's so powerful. Like, what are we doing in our lives to let people in to see our truth that we're living? And when we don't do that, I really believe we can't be that. I like to call it that shiro. I like to talk about how you become a shiro. I coach women, but men can be shiros too. It's not a feminine thing for me. It's about becoming stronger, becoming happier, becoming empowered to live our truth and to let people in. And then as you do that, you do things like you're doing, stepping on stages, talking to people like me. And so you become like this glow up, you become radiant in what your truth is. It's starting to shine in your life. And then because you're doing that, you're living that original life you're supposed to live. That when God brought you here to this earth, he said, I have a plan for you. If you follow the plan and listen to me, you will be doing great things for yourself, but you'll also help others do great things with what the plan is. And I feel like that's what you're doing, Matt. I feel like you are living that truth. You're letting people in. You're being vulnerable like you're here today. And for those that are listening, I'm going to encourage you to go watch us on the YouTube channel too. I mean, Matt, Matt shed a little tear came down his eyes. And for me, I love that because I love when everybody, whether you're a man, female, you're a child, to vulnerably show our feelings. We have to do that because we tell everybody in this world, don't do that. Don't let people see your truth. Don't let people in. Right. And so I would love to know, Matt, if you want to add anything to that, but also share with us, like, so your kids, you have 4 kids, amazing kids, it sounds like. And I love that you said, because you're right, not everybody can go to college. And so it's okay to make different choices, right? But I love that you share that. But tell us how, like, I know it probably was really a lot of stuff for your wife, for your kids, like how did letting them into that world that you live, how did that change and how did that go for you?
Yeah. Thank you for asking that question. I do want to talk about one thing that I did say about when I let people in, that I felt that it was okay to divorce my parents. Like I came to that realization that, they may react the way that I had always played over and over and over for 30 plus years in my mind of what would take place, right? And I knew that may actually happen. But I also was hopeful that it wouldn't, right? I was hopeful that maybe I had been wrong all these years and my parents would have been like, oh, we knew, we were just waiting, whatever that was. But and as the story goes, as my story goes, it didn't happen that way. It happened as I had played in my mind. And so anyway, so that being said, when you made the comment about with your parents, like in my mind, I just told my siblings this maybe a few months ago, like I have come to the realization that the mom and dad that I knew are dead. And I would rather not know what's going on in their life. I don't want them to know about me. Like if they want to know about me and what's going on in my life, they can pick up the phone and call me and say, hey, it's been a while. How are you? What's going on? Right. But, if it does come down to, being in a hospital bed and my mom says, hey, get Matt here or whatever, like, I don't know that I would go. Like, I just, I'm going to cross that bridge when it comes. But yeah, so there's that. As far as my children and my ex-wife and all that went into that, I'll go with my children first. I raised them the same way I was raised, Pearl. So my oldest was 15. And I'm going to get emotional here again. She was 15. And of course, she was the leader of the children, right? So I specifically remember that day when my ex-wife wanted me to have that conversation with the children. It was maybe a week or two after I had let her in. And she wanted to be present. And I was adamantly opposed because I wanted to speak to each one of my children separately. I had a 15-year-old daughter, a 13-year-old daughter, an 11-year-old son, and an 8-year-old daughter, right? So what you tell an 8-year-old is different than what you tell a 15-year-old, right? And so, but she insisted, and I was like, this is not a battle I want to, die on the hill for. So, okay, we'll do it. That was the worst day of my life. Just to see my kids' reaction, my ex-wife going off the rails in front of my children and having an emotional breakdown in front of that. Like it was bad. And from that point, my daughter, my oldest daughter, she told me that I was going to hell. Could not understand, what was going on, why I was doing this. And in reality, Pearl, this is what was going in my mind too. Like my life was good in 2016. I didn't have to do anything. I had chosen to be heterosexual, right? I mean, I didn't have to do anything to change the trajectory of my life in 2016. I could have continued to wear the mask, continue to play that role that I was in, and I chose not to. And I'm so glad that I didn't, because if you are watching or if you're listening, go to the YouTube channel. I shared this on Michelle's podcast, but this is me. This is me in 2012 before, and this is me in 2022. Now, these are Texas driver's license photos. I did not do anything to doctor them up. I weighed the same in both photos. So you can see me as I'm struggling, going through life, and this is me in 2022. So much joy. I look healthier. I look younger. In my opinion, I do. So all that being said, my oldest daughter called me up probably about 3 years after she had gone to college. And she called me up one night and she was like, Dad, and it was like at 10:30. She never calls at 10:30, right? And she's like, have you ever seen the movie Love, Simon? And I said, yeah, I have. And she said, well, me and my roommates just watched it. And she said, I just want to tell you I'm sorry. I'm sorry for the way I treated you. And this movie helped me realize what you had probably been going through all those years. And from that point on, we've had a great relationship. And I think too that when children get out from under the bubble that they live in and they can explore, they can form opinions for themselves and live their lives. Like my second oldest daughter is in Paris, France, going to school. This is her third year. And when I asked her why did she want to do that or what was driving her to do that, she said, because I want to find myself. I don't want to always be known as Matt's daughter or Amy's daughter. Like, I want my own identity. And as a father, that made me so proud that I had raised my children. And one of them was like, you know what? I'm going to go explore. I'm going to go do things that are out of the ordinary. I'm not going to be in that box, right, that so many people find themselves in. So all that being said, my mask was very heavy. And I know that other people out there that are listening to your podcast or watching, they have masks on too. And it's not just about sexuality, as you said. It may be a drug addiction. It may be porn addiction. It may be a physical disability. It may be a mental disability. It may be all the things, right? It may be sexual trauma that was experienced. It could be so many things that we don't let people in. We keep that hidden and it eats away at us, just like hatred eats away at us. The only person that unforgiveness affects or not forgiving someone affects is us, right? It doesn't affect the other person. If we're going to sit and just bask in the hatred and those bad feelings towards somebody, that only affects your mental health and your physical health. So think of the visual that I used a while ago. Wouldn't you want your demeanor and your face and your life to change in such a way that, and all I did, Pearl, was let people in. And I trusted the process. Did I lose people on the way? Yeah, I did. Did I gain people on the way? Yeah. Because people, what I have heard is people like authenticity. They like people to be vulnerable, right? And it has given them encouragement to do so as well. It's hard to be vulnerable. It really, really is, because we have shame around whatever we're sharing. We feel that there's going to be judgment coming, right? I mean, all the things. And if we can just understand that the people that are to be in our lives will be there to support you and love you through it, no matter what it is. And I'm not going to say everybody's going to have the transformation I did, but wouldn't you like to know if you could? And the only way that's going to happen is by letting people in.
It's so true, like letting them in. I just was sitting there picturing, for those that are listening, like if you could have pictured that, you want to let your kids in the way you want it to, and you're trying to respect your ex and how it all played out, what did not go. And you're right. What you tell an 8-year-old is totally different than you tell a 15-year-old. It's two different things, right? And you did the best you could. You tried to honor what her wishes were. And I can't imagine like having your daughter. I mean, because as a daddy's girl, I never imagined my dad would do the things he's done, right? So it's so devastating as a daughter. And then to sit there and to watch, your daughter have, those emotions and everything that they were going through. But how cool it is that years later, something as simple as a movie could open her eyes to be like, oh, I get it now. I understand it. Yeah.
And Pearl, at that time, I was fearful that I wouldn't be able to walk her down the aisle when she got married.
Wow. Yeah.
And she's getting married in November in about a month.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm going to be walking her down the aisle.
Oh, that is amazing.
Those things that we may tell ourselves, like time does heal.
Right.
And it heals people who are willing to be healed.
Exactly. Yeah. It's so true. It's so funny you said that. It's exactly what I said to my mom 2 weeks ago when I was leaving her house.
Mm,
Literally I came home, like, I got to get out of here because I didn't trust what was going to happen. And I said to her, I said, because she kept saying things like, oh, you're just like your dad. And, throwing this, trying to throw things at me. Right. And I was like, I was looking at her and I was listening to her. I said, no, you know what? I'm like what I teach my ladies to do. I'm teaching my boundaries. I'm saying, you're not going to be in my balcony right now. You cannot be in my game of life right now. I'm saying to you, I have boundaries around you, that this and I called it out right in front of him, like, this narcissist behavior, I don't accept and I don't receive. And I go, what hurts the most is that things are going to be happening in your other grandson's life that you're going to miss out on over the next few months. Big things are probably going to happen for him. And it's going to be up to you to foster that relationship. I'm not going to be the mom who says, okay, son, don't forget to check on grandma anymore. You have to now do that. And, and to create those boundaries, it's really important to have those strong boundaries, like with your mom, and I get it and understand, because from being in the same perspective, different reasons, we have to protect our feelings. We have to protect our heart, and at one point I remember I got a phone call that, again, my dad and my mom play games. I got this phone call saying that they thought my dad was in the hospital and he was dying. And I was like, well, I literally said, I don't think it's true. I think it's attention, which is sad. And I was right. Right. But my husband said to me, he's like, what would you have done? I go, I wouldn't have gone, because I would then be saying your behavior was okay now. Right. But the cool thing that you said, and I feel like it's with your kids and your daughter showed it, is no matter what, we raise our kids the way we want them to be raised. And it was very telling for me. About 2 years ago, my dad has taken a significant health turn. And, I always told my boys, I don't care what's happening with Papa and I. If you want a relationship, here's his phone number. Tell me whatever. And I had come home about 2 years ago from visiting with my brother, and he let me know that, hey, just so you know, this is what's happening. And I said, okay, I'm going to go home. I came home and told my husband, I go, not that I need to see him. I'm good. I've made my peace with everything, but I don't want the boys to not have that opportunity if they want to. So literally we were in 2 different cars. We were going to dinner and we were in 2 different cars because my oldest was driving his car. So my husband went with him and my youngest was driving with me in my car. And I say to my youngest in the car, hey, this is what's happening with Papa. If you want to go see him, I would be more than happy to either drive you up or fly you up so you can go see him. And he literally said, because my kids did reach out to my dad at one point, and my dad said, I don't have any grandkids, and he hung up. That's what he did to my kids. Okay. So I said to my son, if you want to, I will he goes, no, he doesn't have grandkids. I'm not going to go. I'm like, okay. And so I got to the restaurant and I let my oldest know, and we sat down for dinner, and he said the exact same thing, my younger, and like 2 different cars, like I said. So, I feel great that I've taught them to set boundaries. You've taught your kids to be accepting, yes, you raised them the way you said, the same thoughts you were raised and everything. However, you said, I want to live my truth. I want to let people into my truth. And had you not done that, like that picture you put up is so telling. So those that are driving, 2 different pictures. One, you can just see not happy with life, like just living life. And the other one, you can see like a big smile, enjoying like your truth. And it's so powerful, that picture. Keep showing it everywhere. But I think you showed your kids that it's okay to live your truth. It's okay to let people in, and it's never too late. It doesn't matter how old you are.
The other thing, too, I wanted to share is my oldest daughter, again, about maybe 6 months or so before the whole conversation about the movie, she called me up and she was like, Dad, I don't know what's going on, but 2 of my friends have come out. Like, one is, transsexual, and another one is a lesbian, and they've confided in me and told me their truth. And she was like, I don't understand. Like, nobody knows our story. Like, she's like, I don't go out and tell our story to everybody, right? And I told her, I said, Caroline, it's because your aura is one of acceptance. Like, people sense that, right? And it's not an aura of oh, she's going to be judgmental. So that is a great thing. And once I got off the phone after that conversation, I was like, wow, this is so powerful that my children are even transforming.
Yeah, because you've shown them how it is to be accepting. You show them how it is to live the truth and to let people in. I think it's powerful. I actually, in my head, I'm like, I could see you and your daughter standing on stage together talking about that to other, like, you guys should really talk about that, to sharing it with families, to share that, your story, and, you know, let her share her side of it and how she came to acceptance as well. I think it'd be a powerful story to share. So I'm just going to put that. So when you do that, just
thanks
make
for planting that seed.
Yeah, when you do that, just tell me and I'm going to come and support. So
okay,
I just looked over and oh my God, we are having such a great conversation. We have like just a few minutes left. So I tell everybody how they can find you.
Yeah, so I do have a talk show as well. It's called the Matt Hilton Show. It's on YouTube, Spotify, all the things, anywhere a podcast can be published. So it is out there. It's a weekly podcast. Every Wednesday, a new episode drops. And yeah, so excited about that. It's interviewing fascinating people with inspiring stories. The other way to get in touch with me, if there's anything real estate related, if it's anybody moving anywhere within the United States, because I have a full network of agents. HiltonRealtyAdvisors.com is a great website to go to and do that search. Or you can always call me. I don't know if I want to give my phone number out here, but they will find it anyway.
Yeah, so we'll put all of that in the show notes so they can find you as well. And I'm so excited you were on the show. It's awesome to have somebody of the opposite sex on our show for every so often. We love it. So everybody, I forewarned Matt that I'm going to do the Better Questions, Better Life. So if you're new to the show, we have these great cards. They're called Better Questions, Better Life. They're from my friend Carol Gill. I get no feedback. I make no money on it, but these cards have been a huge impact to my life, especially over the last year with the loss of our son. But there's 77 different cards that just ask you questions that you can journal on, you can meditate on, you can just take a picture and think about it all day long. So Matt, I'm going to shuffle them. You're going to tell me when to stop. So here we go.
Stop.
All right. So, Matt, your question is, what do I appreciate about me? How befitting for our conversation today.
Oh, wow. Yeah. What do I appreciate about me? So, I appreciate my being able to live my truth, to be brave and courageous enough to do so. I appreciate my kindness towards other people. I love to serve and I love to love. Those are my two words, Pearl, are love and service. And that's what I appreciate about me.
I love it. And that's a lesson to everybody is, what do you appreciate about yourself? You know, living your truth, let people in. And that's been our big theme today. And so I'm going to encourage you, if you're listening to us or you're watching us on YouTube, to subscribe to us if you're watching us on YouTube, but to talk about what you're going to do to live your truth and let people in. And so, Matt, I want to thank you so much for coming on. And I just want to remind everybody that, you know, we come into this world, we are this oyster, we are a little rough on the outside, but as you live your truth and you open up that oyster, you find your inner pearl of greatness. And I hope you go out today and live your truth and find your way of letting people in. Thanks so much. Have a great day.
Sunshine, good to see you again. Had to walk out